What's up guys, it's Sunday, so I wanted to do a video breaking down my meal prep process because I'm able to get 10 to 15 meals done in an hour and I wanted to share that process with you. So before we get started, I want to break this down in a way that makes the most sense to you. So when we're creating meals like this, the idea is to turn this into an assembly line, so we're being as efficient with time as possible. So I'm going to break this down step by step, and now the items you prepare can vary, but there's certain items that are going to be a little faster to prepare. So as with anything, the more efficient it is, the less variety you're probably going to have. So you're going to have to find where you fall in that continuum between variety and then also how much time you have to actually prepare and how efficient you need to be. Now, step one is you need to know what you are prepping for food. So there's a couple ways to go about this. One, you could have a coach like me break down your macros and send you a meal plan. Or if you want to play around with it and you know your macros or your calorie targets, you can use an app like MyFitnessPal on your phone, plan out your meals for the week ahead, and then create a grocery shopping list for however many meals or versions of those meals you're going to need. So for me, I usually have 2 lunches spread out and 1 dinner. So for this example, we're going to talk about those 15 meals getting made. So step one, figure out what you're actually going to eat for the week. Step two is create a shopping list. When you go to the store, you want to pick an off time to save as much time as possible. I know it sounds weird, but Friday after work is usually a decent time, a little later on, or early Saturday, early Sunday morning. You want to make sure that you beat the crowds in there to be efficient. So you have your list, you get in, you hit the grocery store, get all the items that you need for your prep. Once you get back home, we want to think about setting this up as efficiently as possible. So we want multiple things going on at once. Make sure your kitchen is clear. And one really important tip, make sure you have enough Tupperware to store all the food. You don't want to have all that food cooked and nowhere to place it, right? So make sure you have enough Tupperwares for all the meals that you're making. Once you get back, you have all the food spread out. Make sure that you have a clean cooking surface. And now we want to think strategically about where we're going to start. So we want to start with the items that take the longest to cook. Sometimes that can be the meat or protein sources, or if you have some starchier carbohydrates like potatoes, something like that, they can take a while to roast. So let's say for the example today, we're cooking ground turkey and chicken breasts as our proteins. We have rice and potatoes as our carbohydrates, and then we have green vegetables, which I'll share a little bit more about in just a second, as our veggies for these meals. So we know that we're going to be roasting the potatoes and baking the chicken, so we're going to want to get the oven started first. Once the oven's heating up, we want to make sure that we're starting with the things that take the longest. So chopping the potatoes, getting them ready while that's going on, preparing the chicken so that when the oven is preheated, we get those things in. Once the oven's fully preheated, we get everything loaded. We're going to start the ground turkey, so we'll get that going. Pans are heating up. Now I have something really useful here. I have a rice cooker or Instapot that I use for my rice. So while the pans are heating up, we can be measuring out the rice, getting that in there. So you see how things are happening simultaneously. Now that the rice is loaded, we can put the raw ground turkey in here, start to cook it, and brown it as we go. And we're still keeping an eye on the timer for the baked items as well. Now, one thing that I do that saves me a lot of time is I use frozen vegetables. Because of the flash freezing process, there's no loss of nutritional value. So what I do really quick is I throw them in the microwave and just heat them up until they're a little bit softer and more pliable, maybe 3 to 4 minutes. So as I'm doing all this, I'm rotating bags of frozen vegetables through and then setting them to the side as I go. So by this time, my baked items are probably done. I'll pull them out. I've been browning here. That chicken, or the ground turkey rather, is probably almost done as well. And then the rice is about at the end of its cooking time in the rice cooker. So now that I have all the food items prepared in bulk, now it's time to actually break them down into the individual meals. Very important item you want to make sure you have as well is a food scale, because eyeballing is completely inaccurate and volume measurements can be inaccurate depending on how tightly you pack. So the gold standard for measuring out your portions is going to be a food scale, and make it even better, measure in grams, because that's most accurate. So once you have your food, you have your carbohydrates here, you have your protein here, and then your veggies. Very simple. You're just going to take the Tupperware, load it onto the scale. You're going to measure out your portion of protein, let's say 6 ounces of ground turkey in this case, 6 ounces of rice put on there, and then we add the veggies in the portion that we've calculated ahead of time. Simply place it to the side, move on to the next assembly line style, just across the board like that. Now in terms of food safety and storage, you want to make sure that you let the food cool before you throw it in the fridge, so let it come down to room temperature. Now one thing you might have noticed is that I didn't talk about seasoning the food at all. So one trick that I've learned from eating very similar food items day after day to try to stay consistent with macros and be efficient is that it's actually a good hack to season your food as you're about to eat it. So that way you can take the same food, same macros, and create a different flavor profile so you're not getting burned out on eating the same thing, which is called palate fatigue. So I won't season my food until right when I'm about to eat it with a lower calorie sauce or a seasoning mixture that I've come up with before. Things like soy sauce and sriracha are good, salsas, different spices. Add them right before you're about to eat it when you reheat the food. So when you store the food, make sure you have it placed in the fridge once it hits room temperature. And then as you go through the week, you'll just be sticking to your meals like that. Now, this can all be done once you have the shopping done. All this process, because of these tools and the efficiency involved, it should take you less than 60 minutes. Then you let it rest and you put it away like that. That's 15 meals accounted for through the week. So that can actually get you through Monday through Friday. Usually what I'll do is I will eat those 3 meals as my 2 lunches and dinner. That's just my personal macros and process. And then I'll make breakfast fresh every morning as either a shake or some eggs, things like that really quick. But technically, if you were willing to eat very similar things across time, you could eat the same meals and have all 15 prepped going into the week like that. What I found in terms of length of storage time, generally you can get away with storing food for about 7 days if you store it properly. After that, the taste starts to go down. One trick that I also learned, if I know that I'm going to be away on a weekend or something, or I'm not going to have enough time to prep for the week ahead, you can make meals ahead of time, let them cool down to room temperature, and actually freeze them. So if you wanted to do a double prep one weekend, make 30 meals, 20 meals even, and have those in the freezer. So when you get back from a trip, you're not starting off the week wrong as well. So always thinking a couple weeks ahead to make sure that you're on top of it. So I hope this helped. Check out the accompanying meal prep guide. And as always, if you have any questions about meal prepping, nutrition, training, anything like that, I'm here to help. Feel free to send me a message and I'll answer any of your questions.